I'm gonna start this with everything on. So you can see what's going on. I have force terminated both cards into the same monitor, and I've done a bunch of different tests, and there's a lot of promise on putting them both and duplicating, but I can't have AFMF on in Adrenaline in order with that. Although there are a lot of tests that I'm gonna do with duplicate on, because the reason they don't want it on is because it means I can use it on disparate cards, and they don't want that to happen, and the results are quite, because it works, but you can't use fluid frames, and but in when that's on, it might as well not even need fluid frames, because there's another option. But when that's on behind Windows inside of Vulkan for StarCitizen, for example, where all these fours are coming up, Vulkan device 2 is just essentially whatever. If you have two and they're both sending it to Windows for DirectX, so I can make this Vulkan device 2, and it will be the Windows generic frame builder, and then both cards are building the frames at the end, so it doesn't matter which card is working on what. So there's a lot of things that I can do here, and AMD and Windows, and it's starting to look like StarCitizen, but maybe I'm just confused. There's somebody working together to make sure that two different cards can't be worked together for AMD's AFMF fluid frames, whatever the hell that fucking stands for. Because if they work together and the cards don't work together, but if you build the goddamn shaders together and so on and so forth, like building the game, this, the engine from the frame generation that you want from the emulator inside Windows, Windows will handle it just fine, and it's taken them 12 years to figure that shit out, and the old cards work better than the new cards they're trying to sell to you, because they're more powerful at rendering the game. No, I'm not talking about generating the frames. I'm talking about rendering the base part of the game that you have to put the the text on. What do you call it? I mean, because I'm not a developer, and it sounds dumb, like I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't exactly know the words. But look, I'm getting 300 frames in StarCitizen at 3 ping, at a ridiculous amount of frame time, or main thread time, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, texture filter. So they put the texture onto the render, and the render is done. And the fastest card that I know of, as far as cheap cards from when I was playing 1080p, and they started making. See, StarCitizen has been in development, and they've been multi-threaded, trying to multi-thread it for so long that I'm learning stuff that I shouldn't know about regular video games. I can play PUBG now with the two cards that I've had in here since before PUBG came out, one of them, at a higher frame rate and a higher resolution than when the game came out. Explain that to me. Well, you part of it can be, you can say, okay, Windows now has figured out, let's say figured out that about bulldozer, because initially bulldozer was a problem, even though it was a good chip per se, kind of, sort of. Okay, so damn, that looks really bad. I guess that's part of recording. Because every time I try to show that to y'all, the 166 is normal. As soon as I start Windows, it'll be at 166. The only time it goes up is when I'm holding this button down or I'm recording. So it's interrupting. It's interrupting. Anyway, but the 166 is small. It's at 5080, which is perfect, and I've got two graphs to show. You know, it's perfect. That's where I want it. I just can't record it, and you understand. But once that's done, that means that anytime there's an interrupt request inside of Windows with scheduling on, that would be this. Scheduling is on, because I did a bunch of tests with it off, and I can do really well. But at some point, this works better because I have to put, in order to get the kind of results that I'm getting in like for example in StarCitizen, when I'm creating the shaders, these two will share almost 50-50 in some resolutions, and then in some resolutions it'll just be about, like it is now, like 110. It'll be more like 90-15 or something. Okay, but in some, if I put this first and I hate opening that because you guys think I'm retarded. If some of those, two or one, sometimes it will or sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll go straight to one card. Doesn't matter which one has the HDMI. But right now, that's why I'm showing you that I'm terminating both cards and duplicating sometimes, and sometimes I'm terminating both cards and telling it only to draw to one or two here in Windows. So, and when I do that, and I turn this to two, so sometimes I can get the same result where they're sharing. So I can tell you that the game doesn't understand when you have two cards, but Windows does. And you can change the resolution to be higher. Well, for example, what I'm doing is I'm putting a higher resolution here and forcing here to be 1080p, so that my like screen is essentially close to what I want it, and then I'm just kicking a jump or two in borderless. Once I get it, saving it over here, and then putting it back to super resolution and letting the border save in StarCitizen once it's built, and then pulling it up so I can leave it full screen in the game and not get the fuzz. If all of that makes sense to you, then we're in 2160p, and that's why we can't read the damn console because it's so damn small. And it says we're at 53, right? The game says we're at 53, you just can't hardly read it. And that's 53 generated frames in game. I'm sorry, 53 legit frames in game, not generated. We're at 72, we're at 106, according to Fraps. We're not getting anything here, and we're getting 99 and 25. And I can guarantee you, if I switch some of these numbers around, I'll get 99 and 0. So simply drawing the game in a higher resolution gives you better frames on one card, and I've got a video proving that before I even put the other card in there. So if you draw it at higher frames than you're allowed to draw, then you should be able to draw on 8 gigs of VRAM. You'll get a better frame rate in StarCitizen specifically, or I've got it turned off, or got the other card not doing anything. Okay. So here we are at 20 frames, 30 frames, which is in the game. It's in the game. And the card is not tacked out. And my second card, which is actually drawing, is computing all kind of shit. I don't know what the fuck. Copying stuff, like doing stuff. It's doing stuff. And the dedicated GPU memory went way up over here, and they were both at 8. See, so we emulated StarCitizen's VRAM necessity, and it split 8 in half, just barely going over. And all the games do this. But because I'm emulating it here, they actually have multi-thread in StarCitizen. What you're going to see is even though I'm only getting 20, I can generate and just not even care. It's going to look great. But that I'm talking about for the entire solution. That's just proving you I'm in the resolution that I want to be in, and it's hard to draw, and it's beautiful, and it's crisp, and it's clean, and it's clear. You can see it, I can see it. Because we're forcing it into a monitor and a memory space that's not made for one card. Yeah, it's beautiful. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go 2160 into 1080 as the FSR, and we're gonna force StarCitizen down to we'll go 900 because 990 is a goofy one, and I don't really know who uses it. I've never heard of it, but it's always an option. I don't fucking know. And so I'm not sure if it's doing the FSR first or the 900 to 1080p first. But what you can tell is when you start the game, if the screen is like almost as big as your screen, then it's using a pretty good resolution, and you don't. But sometimes it'll be like a tiny little thing you can't read and it's all ripped up. But you're going to get really good frames with that. You're just not going to get very good quality. And I'm not sure which. It takes a minute to kind of get it figured out. But anyway, it's not super important. It says I'm at 2160p, which is a 3K. It says I'm at 50. I don't know if this will ever happen. It doesn't matter. It won't show me. But 54 frames, I could play Star Citizen at 54 frames if they're legit, because I could always generate frames. And what I'm telling you is I'm generating frames on 2 different cards on Star Citizen right now. And it doesn't matter that only one card is getting used. This card for all intents and purposes, as the way that this test is going, this card does not have an HDMI cable on it because it's terminated as the one, and Windows is told to ignore it. So I'm forcing the game to draw to 1 and telling Windows to pick the best card. So when I make the screen way too large, StarCitizen just thinks that the card is bigger than it is as far as the memory is concerned because there's a space available for it. And then it uses one card and it no longer gets tacked out anymore. Explain that to me. I've just showed you the other one when it was tacked out. And 30 frames is enough to run StarCitizen. And that's not what I'm telling you. I can get it to 140, 150 legit frames before I even use AMFM. I'm just or AFMF. Okay? What I'm showing you is that there's a way to make this game same as many other games, but specifically with because this is Vulkan and this is not DirectX. It there's a way to make it run even better than this, and I will show you the videos. It will happen. It's just right now I'm trying to prove to somebody that the fact that you just have 2 cards in your machine because this game is coded the way that it's coded for multi-threading is going to make your game run better even if you don't even know how to use the second card. Just make the VSR slightly larger than 1080p, whatever is available for your VSR on Adrenaline. Just just step it up one notch and then find the best settings for you, and you're still gonna beat just having one card in your machine. Yeah, that's gonna be the end of this one.